Good. Happy Friday, friends. We are so glad to be together. We're so glad that you're here with us. And I actually, again, have my two wonderful friends with me, Mr. Peter Stout and Dianna Shyne. Hey, good morning, friends.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm doing
good?
great. How are you, Jed?
I'm great. That's wonderful.
And, I feel really blessed to be able to work with people like Peter and Dianna and the whole rest of the Acrylic University team. It's just, isn't it wonderful, guys, that we get to spend time together?
It is. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's
Oh, it's
wonderful.
so awesome.
I love it. Yeah.
And then we get all these shiny, happy people. Like, look at this chat. I just see all this happiness and joy and love, and it's so awesome to be together. So, guys, thank you for helping make Friday today just a wonderful day for all of us. We love seeing you here in the chat. Give us a shout out. Say where you're coming in from. I see so many that have already done that, but wonderful to be together. And Dianna, I want to just I saw somebody in the chat earlier say, I'm so looking forward to this lesson because I love sky and clouds. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they think when we're saying atmosphere, they're like, oh, the sky clouds. And this is a little different than that. Can you just give a tiny little hint at what we're talking about today?
Right. Yeah. The lesson today is on how atmosphere affects the things we see on the ground. The air we look through that seems perfectly clear actually makes things appear different, makes mountains and trees and buildings appear different as they go back in space away from us. So this lesson on atmosphere is more about what we see here on the ground than what we see up in the sky.
And at the same time, like you will say in the lesson, it is affected by the sky because essentially you are kind of seeing the sky in between us and everything else. But it's really, anyways, for those of you who are wondering what we're talking about, this lesson is on atmosphere. We're going to jump into it. We got a lot to cover today. So thank you for being here. I'm going to switch my screen over here just now. And let's look at this. So we are, of course, again, if you just hopped in, don't know what you're in for, this is the acrylic landscape workshop, and we're on session number 3 here today. This has been the third of 3 different sessions, and we've got one more coming up on Monday, which is the celebration and the prizes, and that's going to be a super awesome blast. And another really fun thing, and I know we've had lots of people saying, hey, when are you guys going to open up a membership? It is open today. So if you go to the site, you'll see that there are some links because we want to make it very easy for you to see. And that's really fun for us to be able to open the doors and welcome people in because there's lots of time of the year that you can't come in, but this is one of those special times where you can. And I just want to ask you this question. What would your life look like if you were flourishing in a vibrant community in your art? What would your life look like? Like, would it be, do you enjoy art? Like, do you love creating? What if you were creating more? What if you had friends around you that were, really participating in this journey with you and kept you encouraged and all that kind of stuff? What if you were getting guided and you were learning and growing, and like, what would your life look like? Would it be more full? Would it be more rich? Would it be more just like more wonderful, enjoyable on a day-to-day basis? Because that's kind of what we're hoping for you. And that's what our goal is with Acrylic University, is that this is what your life can look like. You can flourish in it. But today is session 3. We're going to jump into it because you see both of us on this picture today. Diana's here, I'm here. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you another little snapshot inside of Acrylic University. And Dianna is going to present a teaching that is from one of the landscape modules on atmosphere. And so you'll hear the instruction from her. And then I'm going to take the ideas that she talks about, and I'm going to do a demonstration for you. So both of us are participating in today's teaching, and Are you ready for this, guys? I want to see it in the shout, and I want to see it in the chat. Shout it out. Are you ready for today? Because I'm getting all jacked up. I'm excited for today. I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. I love it. Yes, yes, born ready. Hello again, ready. The chat moves so fast sometimes, you guys. It's awesome. It's awesome. Would be great, but I'm a total beginner. Ready. Yes. Heck yes to the ready. Heck to the yes. I love it. Okay, so just a reminder that when it gets to the demo time, you don't have to paint along with the demo. A lot of times what's easiest and best is to just watch and concentrate and pay attention and learn, and then go back and do the actual painting exercise yourself later. But Peter, are we ready for this? Because we can roll the instruction right now.
We are ready.
Ask your questions and we'll answer them during the chat, but we'll also answer them at the very end. So
sounds great. All right, see you guys on the other side.
We're talking about atmospheric perspective, and what does that mean? What does atmosphere mean? A lot of us think that atmosphere just means weather, but atmosphere is so much more than just fog and clouds and rain and weather. It's the actual air that envelops everything we see all the time. When we think about it, air is made out of particles, and the particles are lit by the sun. So let's take a look at some ideas about the ways that atmosphere affects the depth of our paintings. When we're in a plane, we can easily see the layers of atmosphere. We're looking through the air itself, and the air is creating a thicker and thicker and thicker event until the mountains disappear into the sky beyond. That's actual sky we're looking through. And in a plane, it's easy to see because we're looking at miles and miles and miles into the distance. So I need to find a way to describe this event to artists. So when we're painting a landscape or painting any kind of a painting that has a sense of distance, we can allow for the effect of the air itself to be involved. It's not just a backdrop. It's part of the scene we're creating. So here's the way I describe it to my students. Think of atmosphere as if it were a transparent shower curtain that we drop between our eyes and the distance. Then when we look through more atmosphere, another shower curtain drops. And we look through more atmosphere and another shower curtain drops. That's sort of the way to think about how atmosphere changes color, changes the value of the colors you're using, and changes the intensity or brightness of the colors you're using. Here is the image in just the absolute raw data to create a sense of atmosphere, and I'll talk about it further in just a second. But here are some mountains in Tuscany, and you can see the atmosphere here isn't blue like I lowered before. It has a sort of a warm purpley color. Each hill going back into the sky becomes a little more sky colored. We're actually looking through the sky to the mountains in the back. And we can easily see the veils of atmosphere as they descend as we progress through the mountains. A lot of times it's easier to think about atmosphere when we're talking about real mist or water vapor. You can see how the water vapor we're looking through makes a mystery in the back mountains. It erases the edges of trees. It erases details. It makes things invisible or barely visible. And that's sort of the way we need to think about atmosphere as it changes things for our paintings. Here's another scene in Italy, a tree and some mountains beyond. Let's take a look at 3 tools that create atmospheric perspective. These 3 tools are the value jump and the value of shadows, the temperature of the color, and the intensity of the color. Let's look at this. Here's our image. In the far distance, I've created a little box around the mountains, and then I've put them close to the foreground. Let's take a look at these. I've put a little value scale between the foreground and background. You can see in that back mountain, barely, that it is composed of fields and trees, the same kinds of fields and trees as in the foreground, but the value jump between light and dark is just a 1 jump from a light value to a little bit darker light value. In the foreground, the values jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 values from light to dark. And that value jump tells our eyes that these things are closer. The limited value jump tells us that those things are further away. So the value jump is minimized in the distance. The distance is also cooler, meaning a little bluer, and the colors are duller. In the foreground, the value jump is larger. The foreground colors are warmer, meaning they tend more towards yellow or orange. And the foreground is brighter. Let's take a look at some more. Value jump. Let's look at how the jump between light and dark values affects the way we see distance. Here are some lovely women walking down a path in Italy, and I've circled a foreground piece and I've circled a background piece. Let's take a look. Inside that background hillside, there are trees and some orchards and grasses, very similar to what's in the foreground. I've numbered the value scale from 1 to 9, white 1 and 9 is black. And you can see that in the background, the value is jumping from a number 3 to a number 4 value. It's a 1 value jump. In the foreground, the values are jumping from a number 2 value to a number 8 value in the little section that I've cut out. This tells our eye that atmosphere, that the actual air in the valley has created a block, has blocked out some of the values, has blocked out some of the color. Here's a painting by John Hammond, a wonderful acrylic painter in Europe. And I'm just going to take a little section out of the foreground and the background of his painting. And we're going to see the difference in the value jump between objects in the foreground and the value jump between objects in the background. There is a big value jump between light and dark in his foreground piece, and a very small value jump between light and dark in the background piece. This is a painting that I did in the Skagit Valley called The Show Is Starting. And the yellow daffodils really impair the way we see values, so I'm going to turn this into grayscale. The background, or the backdrop, is not very far away. I could walk there in like maybe a minute and a half. It isn't a far distant background. So I'm going to take a look at this. We'll grab a little piece of the foreground. We'll grab a little piece of the background and set them side by side. And let's take a look. In the foreground, we have values all the way from light to black, all 9 values. In the background, we have values from white to about mid value. It shows that we're looking at things not very far away, but still farther away than the foreground. In this painting by John Singer Sargent, I want to just look at the little figures on the left-hand side. There they are. I've singled them out. Let's blow them up so we can look at them. This is a watercolor. The figures were actually quite close together in the painting, but you can see the figures that were in the foreground are painted a little bit darker than the figures that were just slightly behind them, giving us a sense of perspective. Here's a painting that I did many years ago called Still Life in Teal. And I was looking out a window from my studio, and to create that sense of distance, I exaggerated the value jump in the background. So here you can see that the value jump is large. And here in the background, even though that background is just about 1.5 feet away, I exaggerated the value jump so that it would retreat into the background. Now we can see how actual sunlight itself creates atmosphere. It doesn't have to be clouds in the way or dust or dirt in the air. The sunlight itself actually ate a hole in this mountain and created a veil of atmosphere that creates a value difference between the foreground and the background. The next thing I want to talk about is the temperature of colors. When we talk about color temperature, we're going to imagine that everything that has red and yellow in it as a major component is a warm color, and everything that has blue in it as a major component would be considered a cool color. So let's take a look at this picture from Maine of some rocks and water. I've covered the foreground rocks with a blue covering, and I'm going to remove it now to show you how warmth, or the warmth of our color, creates a sense of distance. When I remove the blue covering, you can see that the rocks are very close to the viewer and that the water is very far away. You get a real sense of how far you'd have to jump into that water. Okay, I'm not going to do it, but you can really see when I put the covering back, you don't have a real sense of distance here. You kind of know the rocks are further away, the big rocks are further away than the water, but when we see the warmth of the rocks right up close, we know that it's quite a distance. Here's another image that I took, and we can see the foreground is quite detailed, and the background goes away into the dist. The value jump is there between dark and light, but let me remove the blue mist, and we can see warm colors jump forward. When colors are warmer, they tend to pop closer into the foreground. In this picture, where it's an evening, there's a lot of mist in the air, I'm just going to look at this little villa and then look at some of the background behind it, and then some of the mountain behind that. And we can see that the yellows, or the yellows inside the greens, are brighter yellow and warmer than the greens in the second left-hand circle. And everything is warmer than the greens in the background. The greens have almost disappeared and faded into blue. The background mountains have become blue. If you squint, you can see that the mountains in the back are no longer green at all, even though they're covered with green grass. What's causing them to turn blue? Atmosphere. Here I want you to pay attention to the reds, because red is a very vibrant color and very warm. Let's look at reds as they go back in space. There's some reds over there. We'll move them up. There's some reds way in the back. Let's move them up. Take a look at what happened to the reds. They became cooler and cooler. The temperature of the reds, the heat of the reds, diminishes as the image gets further and further back in space. How do you do this with paint? Well, we'll look at it. In this one, the space between the flowers, this beautiful painting by Delgesh, a Washington artist, the space between the flowers and the backdrop is not very far. So in order to create a little sense of space, Del put a cool, dull-colored backdrop behind his sunflowers to give the sense that the sunflowers are pushing forward, reaching out towards the viewer, and the background is pushing back, even though it's just inches. Imagine if that background was bright yellow, the sunflowers would just disappear. In this painting by Sergei Bongard, he painted the sides of the brown shed purple to show that the distance between the foreground of the grasses in sunlight and the background of the shed in shadow. When I talk about intensity, I mean the brightness or dullness of a color. Let's take a look at what I mean by intensity. In this image, all the flowers are about the same distance from the viewer. When I reduce the intensity of some of the flowers, one flower looks as if it's closer to us. The flower on the left is more intense or brighter than the other flowers, and it looks a little bit closer to us. I took this picture of a cathedral in Prince Edward Island and this one, and just by the intensity of the color, you know that I was standing a long way away from the cathedral in the right-hand picture and just zoomed in on it. It's also a different time of day, but the intensity of the color shows that I was much further away. When we look at these tulips, they look all very bright and intense. But when I bring the background tulips forward, you can see that the tulips in the background are much duller, not nearly as brilliant and brightly hued as the tulips in the foreground. And here, once again in Italy, we're going to look at the intensity of the color between the foreground, grasses and plants, and the background. The background is much duller. The colors in the foreground are much brighter. And so you can see how when you shift intensity, you also can shift the way the viewer sees near and far.
Before we jump into the demo, I wanted to look at this reference photo and talk briefly. Dianna did a great job of explaining that even if there was no mist or fog or clouds in between us, even if it was a clear day, there would still be air in between us and this back mountain, these back hills, and there would still be a change. The value jump would be different, and these would be lighter and more blue. So even if this was a clear day, we could still practice the idea of painting atmosphere. But what I wanted to do in this demo was a little bit more based on the idea of mist and fog and the actual little tiny droplets that will hang in the air when we have a situation like this, and create an even more intense or mysterious type of atmosphere in the air. So I'm going to show you two different ways to create these really soft edges and really kind of mysterious ethereal clouds. One is with titanium white, and it really involves dry brushing and smudging with your fingers. And the second is with zinc white, which is a transparent white, and it is just a secondary kind of way to approach this. If you don't have zinc white, that is okay. This is just informative for you to learn and to see how it could work. But anyways, I think this is a nice simple image to paint. It's got a great contrast with these front trees and the background. So hopefully it'll be fun to paint, and also kind of a good reference photo to learn from. So let's jump into the demo now. Okay, so we're going to paint this atmospheric reference photo right here. We're going to put it on this blank white canvas, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I wanted to just show you from the beginning how I might approach this. There's different ways, but when I have a scene like this that is kind of monotone, it doesn't have a lot of color in it, right? There's dark values, there's trees coming up, but the background and everything it's relatively gray. It doesn't have a lot of color. There's a little bit of blue back there, but not much. Sometimes I will take a really bright color like this red, naphthol red. I might mix a little bit of blue into it, but I could use this, I could use orange, I could use any kind of color, but I might go over the entire canvas with something like this just to get a little bit of life and color in there. And not that you have to do this, but again, this is just a way that you can paint. And I like to show people options because something will stick with you, but other things won't. Like, you might like this technique. You might think, oh, this was so fun to paint on something really bright. Others of you might say, oh, that was really awful. I don't like that. I preferred the gray. Others of you might prefer, something really light to paint on. But when you try new things is really when you learn. And I'm just going to keep going with it right now while it's still wet, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we can just keep going right now. We don't have to wait at all. But I want to just start getting in these shapes and these trees, because these are the things that are going to be like the biggest part of the painting. But actually, as I say that, I just am thinking, for simplicity, that would be the way that I would normally do it, as I'd start at the foreground and I work my way towards the background. But because I know that that's a little bit backwards for a lot of people, I'm actually going to do it a different way. I'm going to start more in the back, and I'm going to begin with putting in a little bit of lighter value before I start in with some of the foreground. So this is going to be toward the back colors, and all I'm doing is adding white. There's nothing more than just white coming in right now. There's gonna be actually quite a bit of paint on here by the time we're done. Now I'll bring in, this is gonna need to dry. The different parts of this are gonna need to dry for sure, because it's gonna, you can see with the white mixed in. But what we're going for here is atmosphere. And I believe it was Claude Monet, it might have been another artist, but they said, without atmosphere, a painting is nothing. And that's always stood out to me, like, oh wow, they really thought that atmosphere was a crucial part of a painting, because that's a really strong statement. So that's why we're talking about it, why we're learning it, is because it makes a big difference. And these are the darker values, darker colors. And really all we're doing is just trying to get these shapes in. And you can tell that with the white that we put on, it's mixing in with some of the darks that we're putting down right now, and it's not allowing it to be real dark. So I'm probably going to pause a couple times during this process, and I'm going to use my hair dryer and dry some of this so that you can see painting on a dry surface as well, because this is probably going to take a little bit too long to dry on its own. So I'm gonna come in and just put some hints of some of this other stuff back in the background. We've got a couple hints of, and really all I'm doing is I'm allowing that wet paint to stay on there. It's still wet back there, and I'm just kind of trying to hint at some of the hill in the back without putting on too much. Just giving me some ideas for where it's at. And I might even simplify it. There's another one back there, but I have a feeling I might just leave that one out. And then I think I'm gonna make this tree a little bit taller. I'm actually gonna bring it up more like that, so that this hill, these kind of mountainy hills in the background here, they might be right below the top of that. I kind of want that tree to be the tallest part of this. Okay, so what we've done so far is we have established the design of this, and we've got a wet painting here. So I am going to bring out this. I'm going to mute my sound for just a second. Okay, so it's nice and dry now. We can definitely come into that and get some more lighter values and different things like that. What I'm wanting to show you is not all the techniques for creating atmosphere or things, because there's quite a few different ways that you can do things, but I want to show you a couple that are hopefully going to be helpful and maybe easily within your reach with just simple paints. Not a lot of mediums, not a lot of stuff like that, because there's other stuff I can show you later as we get in, but I want to start out with the really basic materials. So like I said, you can see that this is now got a little bit of the gray in there, and I'm going to grab, because it mixed in with the white. It was just pretty much black that I put down, but because of the white, it made it more gray. So I'm grabbing black, a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, and I'm making a dark green. This is just a dark green now, but it looks probably pretty much like black to you. You might not see much of the nuances of it. And I'm just using my big brush here. And I'm looking around to see, like, I might not go back into all of this. I might leave some of that back there with the more of the gray. Not sure. Some of this has more variety. Like it's got a little bit more yellow in it, a little bit, it's maybe a little bit lighter in some places, things like that. But overall, it's pretty dark, especially compared to the misty atmosphere in the painting. Okay, I feel like that's starting to get where we want to go. Now, like I said, there's a few different ways that we could, attempt to do this. But a lot of times I will start here at the beginning or at the foreground and I'll work my way back. But I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to start at the back right now. I'm going to shape some of this with the sky color, but I'm hopefully I'll also be able to make this just a little bit simpler than all the shaping with negative painting. I'm hoping that I can make it a little bit more of a back and forth kind of painting experience, meaning putting in the sky color. This is straight up white right now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a little bit of blue. And we're going to come back here and we're going to touch on this hill that is in the very back. It's really light. There's a lot of atmosphere in between us and this hill. It's not that much darker than the sky, really. I mean, you can tell the difference, of course, but it's pretty light. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit more with a tiny bit of black. A little bit more black than that for this area. And this is, again, this is another area that's like really softened by the haziness and the mist and the clouds that are kind of in between us. Some of that comes all the way down. So one thing, whether or not there's mist in between you and the far distance, there's the principle of it receding in values, and the darkest values are going to be lighter. There's less value jump in between the values as you get further away. The lights are a little bit subdued and the darks are a little bit subdued, so there's not as extreme shifts as there can be in the foreground. And that's gonna be no matter what, but when you throw this fog into the mix, it can subdue that even more, because it's like putting a veil in between you and the subject. And you can't see even the subject very clearly. Oh, I guess I accidentally did add that hill over there. What I really was intending to do was coming and grabbing this white again. And now is where really for the first time I'm going to start doing some of the technique that I would consider to be like more of the haziness and trying to make it look like this fog, this mist is in the air. Up to now, we've mostly just kind of established the values to some degree. But this is where it's actually kind of fun. So this would be, like I have a color here that is going to be the color of the mist. It's not pure white. It was a mix with kind of this blue-gray and white. And so it's definitely lighter in value than the trees that are back here. But it's not as light as it could be. We have quite a bit of room to add a lighter value if we want to or need to. So here I'm coming in and I'm going to just begin shaping now with some of the foggy color. So everything is going to just, I'm looking back and forth. I want to be aware of where in the reference photo is the cloud, because I don't want to go, I kind of want to be true to what's there. And so I'm looking up and it looks to me like it comes down a little bit further over here. And if it's, so the difference is like these trees have pretty distinct edges against the fog. Even though they're soft, because what we learned about trees is that we want to keep some broken, softer edges on them, all that. That's still true. However, it's different than the edge of the fog, right? The edge of the fogginess is like, whoa, that's even more soft, right? It's like complete softness. So again, I'm coming with my finger and I'm smudging those edges. I'm rubbing them out a little bit to get that softest edge right there, right? That's what I'm going for, is that might be the softest edge that I can get. And some of those places, you know, maybe I need to make that a little bit lighter. Maybe it wants to be a little bit more just almost a white, and maybe that can be smudged together like that. And we can kind of come back and forth in this to create those soft edges and lost lines and mix things a little bit. Maybe that needs to be a little bit darker up there, you know. So paying attention to the value of the fogginess as I'm putting it in. As even though it's all kind of white clouds, if you look closely, it's not all exactly the same, right? It's like some of the sky looks a little bit lighter than other parts of the sky, and maybe some of these places are more clear than other places. So how do we go about portraying all that? That's the fun of this, is trying to figure that out. So adding in a little bit of lighter cloud in there. And then this comes down and you can kind of, again, you can kind of see through, like down here it gets a little bit lighter. It's not lighter in value, but the veil is a little bit thinner, so you can see through to the hill a little bit more down there. So I'm looking back and forth, just trying to make sure that I'm capturing this way that I can. So we'll keep going with the soft edges and the broken lines, and all of this so far has been done with either a dry brush, like putting it down in a way that's, you know, like barely anything's coming off there. So when it does come off, there's not a lot of paint. And then I'm kind of smudging it. Okay, so we're getting these really soft edges. And then where we want a harder edge, we can put on thicker paint. We can define it a little bit more. We can show that it's, you know, those are trees. It's the top of the ridge, and the clouds that are behind it are more of a pure white. And in that we're really shaping this whole scene. Just like that. Intermixing those that kind of fog color with the cloud cover up above it. And then we're going to come in here. There's this kind of another layer of fog back behind this first hill. I'm probably going to keep the top edge of that fog a little bit lighter than, when I say lighter, I mean thinner and less defined than what I see in the picture. In the picture, it's a little bit of a, it almost looks like the top of a cloud back there. Okay, but we're defining the front trees, and I'm really like looking back to see if there's anything that I'm doing that looks awkward or, you know, is not making that much sense. But I think overall it's starting to kind of read like fog and mist. Ooh, that's a lot of white right there. Okay. We also have this hill back here that's I wasn't going to put in at first, but I kind of did put it in. So I might just see if I can work with it. Maybe something like that. Okay. So then what I kind of feel like doing is defining this the top of the hill here. That hill at the very back. And that'll mean defining this front tree a little bit more too, more than likely here. So I don't really like the design too much to come up to a peak right there. I don't know, maybe that's okay, but I kind of think that I'd rather have it do something a little different. And I probably need to grab a smaller brush to define that right there. Okay. Gonna get a little bit of water on my brush because the white that I'm using up there has been in the open air for a little while and is starting to get a little tiny bit dry. Okay, so some of this could be a little darker to add in a little variety into the sky. And let's see. Okay, so now we're just taking another look at this. Okay, so that technique right there, what I just did was all pretty much dry brushing and smudging, right? Smudging with the finger, dry brushing. So I'm going to dry it right now, and then I'm going to show you one more way to do some atmospheric kind of, it's another technique to get a really layered atmospheric look to this. So again, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to mute the microphone for just a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so that is like the basic, most easy way to do something when you know, you can see I get it on my fingers a lot when I smudge, but you don't need anything special to be able to do that. You can just use your titanium white everything like that. But if you do ever want to try something different and you want to see what a slightly different color would do, you could get some zinc white. This is zinc white. It is a more transparent color, like you can see through it a little bit more. And so it works slightly different than titanium white. Titanium white is much more opaque and it covers other darker colors easier. Zinc white doesn't cover the dark colors as easily, but what it does is it shows through a little bit, so you can do layers with it. And you can get it either in fluid white, like this is a fluid white, but you can also get it in something like this. This is a normal, it's not, I don't know if this would be heavy body, but it's more of a heavy body color and or paint, and you can get it that way too. I sometimes like using this in the fluid because that means it's already got more medium in there than if it was just a straight up color. So, and you can mix this with other colors, but if I put this on, you can kind of see how it's not that opaque, right? It's showing through quite a bit of that color that's underneath, and you can still wipe off this color. You can, go like put a little bit on, take a little bit off. You can mix this with water if you want. You can add, like I just said, you could add a little bit of color to it if you want. So if I wanted to make it a little bit more blue, I could add a little bit of this blue to it, and we'd have a color that's going to be probably a little bit more like the original color that I put down. You can see it's got more of a blue in there, so it's not going to be as white, and so it's maybe just a little bit more subtle than the pure pigment zinc white going down. This is going to have a little bit more blue. You can see that when it comes up into the sky a little bit because it's set against. Now, the thing about zinc white and doing it like this is that it provides some opportunities, but it also has a couple different challenges that if you're using your finger to smudge and just titanium white, that has other challenges. They're just a little bit different, but this is going to, it will dry a little differently. You might not be able to control everything, and you have to be a little bit smoother and things with your brush marks, or you might see puddling or little strokes or different things. Whereas if you're smudging, sometimes you can just take your finger and you can wipe out any of that you have happen. But again, these are just a couple techniques for getting atmosphere into your paintings. And to repeat that quote from earlier, without atmosphere, your painting is nothing. A painting is nothing. Now, you don't have to believe that completely, but I think it's a kind of a interesting way to say that atmosphere is very important, and it's effective in a scene to convey interest and mystery and kind of like just a ethereal nature. And I love misty kind of days because there's a mystery to them, right? The fog, it's like you're walking into the unknown when you see the fog, and you just something kind of cool about it. And in terms of art, it can be a challenging thing to be able to like figure out, okay, how do we do that? So I found in acrylics especially, sometimes it's good to have a couple of these tools in your tool belt and to be able to, pull them out and say, yeah, okay, well, at least I know how to use smudging, and I can use zinc white. These are two great ways that I can go about getting a little bit of a mysterious look in my artwork. So you guys, I hope that was helpful. Hope that was informative. Same principles apply across the board with trees. We want to break up those edges. We want to keep them interesting, and that also can be done with this zinc white or with smudging, because if you have an edge that's maybe a little bit too hard or something like that, you want to soften that edge up. Sometimes you can even just come back to the edge with this color, this more transparent color, and add a little bit of that on there. And what it's going to do is it's going to just soften that edge a little bit and provide you with a little bit more of a broken edge and softer edge. So it's less distracting if it's not in your focal area, and it's not going to draw that attention away from what you want people to look at. So again, hope that was helpful and interesting, and thank you for being here. It's fun for me. And there we have a very nice, simple painting, but you can see some of the fun things that can happen with just a little bit of titanium white, a little bit of zinc white, and you can see I'm coming back with a little bit of zinc white right here just to work on this design. So thanks for being here. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so that was fun. I had a lot of fun. I actually love painting that type of scene, right, where there's all that misty atmosphere, and it's really fun. So guys, I hope that was helpful for you. I want to show you again, because I realized that I didn't necessarily give you this link beforehand, but if you are looking for reference photos or supply lists or the replays of these, the easiest place to go is to thelandscapeworkshop.com. You go there and you will see everything there. It's hopefully laid out really easy for you to find. And if you have any questions like, where to get something like zinc white, we actually have a supply list that you can click a link on, and it can take you to a store online that you could just purchase it from. So that's really cool. And I also want to remind you that if you're participating in this, we have the main prize event is coming up on Monday, and Dianna and I are going to be painting together. If you've come to one of those events, it's really fun, where we'll have both of our paintings on the screen at the same time, painting the same reference photo this time, and you'll be able to see how we approach it. A lot of it is going to be similar. We'll approach it in a lot of the same ways, but then you'll see how two different artists will approach it differently too. And so it's a really fun and informative time. And we're going to give away a prize here in just a couple minutes. It is going to be a $100 gift card, but I would love to also just take a minute. Can I just give you some thoughts and take a couple minutes about talking to you about Acrylic University? At the very beginning of the day, right today, I asked you this question: what would your life look like if you were flourishing in a vibrant community in your art? And the reason I ask it like that is because we get emails, we get texts, we get things back to us all the time. And this is somebody who, after 1 year with Acrylic University, wrote us this and said, "This year I've painted 53 plus pieces, which is a record year for me. And it all started with the landscape masterclass. It's been a rough year for our family, and I could easily have given or set aside an interest that gives me such joy. But grateful thanks to the Acrylic University staff and community for all the encouragement, excellent teaching, cooperative learning, challenges, and kind prodding." And another one, it's very similar. Like, I love it. Been learning so much. My paintings are showing improvement. So what would it take for you to thrive in your art? Really, we all kind of know that consistency is what it's all about. Like, hey, if we could paint regularly and paint with joy and like practice, practice, practice. But I have a question. Has anyone out there like me ever struggled with consistency? Have you ever like gone, yeah, I want to do this thing. I made this, kind of commitment. I wanted to, it could be your diet. It could be health, like physical fitness. It could be something like a passion, like art. Like, I really love this. I love doing it and I want to do it more. But what we found is that consistency is, it's kind of, motivation comes and goes. But you know what doesn't come and go is your environment. And if you can put yourself in an environment where you have community and you have coaching, that's where you're actually going to gain consistency. So I could read off lots of these. Since joining AU, I've painted 27 paintings. I just can't stop painting. I don't really want to clean the house or go anywhere. I just want to paint. I feel like I've learned so much in a short amount of time. I could go through lots of this stuff. There's wonderful things, but we have built Acrylic University for you. I like to think of it like a house where you can come inside and you can be encouraged and strengthened and find what you need to flourish. You can find people to grow with, and all this stuff happens on a regular basis. So our monthly rhythm is this, that week one, you're going to have an A1 premium, like top world-class workshop with Dianna Shyne. You know how good she is. If you've listened to her instruction, if you've been here even through this, she is incredible. And you'll learn from an artist who's been painting for years and years and years in acrylics, who has insight and depth of wisdom with this medium. That's just the first week. You're going to get that the first week of the month. The second week of the month, you're going to get what we call artist choice. And that's where we have a guest artist come in and do a demonstration that will sometimes go to their studio. We'll see a little bit into their life. And you're going to be learning from, again, just top artists and seeing different approaches to different things. Can I give you even more? Because the third week, we're going to do a Discover Your Voice. That's a session with me where it really is looking at how would you approach a scene? Not necessarily like, okay, this is the only way to do it. Like, you should do it like Jed does it, but I give you the reference photo and you work through it yourself. And then I'll show you the way that I might approach it, right? And so that way, it's like going to school straight out of high school versus going to a job and really loving what you're doing and then going, oh, I want to get trained more for this. It's the difference between like, I've already been working in this, and now when I listen and I pay attention, I'm like, I already know the questions that I have. So it's a really fun way to discover more about yourself. And then of course, the fourth week, we have critiques. We have amazing artists who will give really wonderful critiques where you can see the whole, the original painting. You can see what they would do to it. They give you incredible insights into each one that even if it's not your painting, you will say, oh, I get it. Like, I can see that, and you can apply it to your own work. So the question, what would your life look like if you're flourishing? That's what we built that whole, like that month is based on, hey, these are things that will help you. But the question comes like, well, what if you got stuck? That first part of the membership we call the journey, because it's like, hey, we're moving together. But what if you got stuck? That's why we built the library. And the library is a resource. It's like a vast place where you can go and you can get all sorts of stuff. Acrylic 101, courses, color 101, design 101, the color of light and shadow. There's just so much stuff in there. Landscape modules. There's like this growing library of stuff that it's not to overwhelm you. If you go to your local library, you don't sit there and say, oh no, I'm behind because I haven't read all the books in the library. Nobody does that. But what you do is you say, hey, I have a question about, gardening, and I'm going to go to this gardening section and I'm going to select the book that I need, and I'm going to learn about gardening from this book. And then when I go back to my garden, I know what I'm doing a little bit more. And that's what the library is all about. It's there to be a resource for you. And again, here's another quote. I'm crazy grateful that you and your team are here. You will never know how much, in fact, you have been for me, besides my family and friends, a comforting presence in my life. To have found you and have art brought back into my life has helped me through my stuff. You have given me some joy to bask in and are helping me keep my feet on the ground. Catherine said that, and a big part of this is the community. You're not meant to journey alone. You're meant to do it with people who can encourage you. And this is what happens inside of the communities. You get encouragement, people who, are going to voice things, speak into your life when you're feeling a little bit discouraged, or you might not even see what is going good in a particular painting, and other people can see it a lot easier than you. And that's a mutual thing. So you get coaching, community, and consistency. And I just want to ask this. I love that, Doug. I see that acrylic university is cheaper than seeing a counselor, and it's been great for my mental health. I'm the same way. Art is good for you. Art is therapy. Art is really wonderful. Is there an acrylic university member in the house today? Can I hear a little shout out from acrylic university? Here's Shannon. I have this image in here from before, and I was like thinking, oh, maybe I should switch this up, but I love this. Shannon says, this painting is like a miracle to me. I can't believe how much I've grown with AU in just 1 year. So she says, last September, I was such a scared puppy. And this is referring to like this image of we want to be bold and courageous, but sometimes we paint like a scared puppy. She's referring to that. So timid, afraid to make mistakes, afraid to mix colors, afraid to have fun. And isn't that what art should be? I always think art is challenging. So really, if we're not having fun, what would we do it for? And so I really hope that we all can have fun, because if we have fun, then we can approach the challenging parts of art and go like, yeah, but this is really fun too. And I want to keep going. This painting was done outside in plein air, fearlessly. I stood there with the bugs swarming me, but I didn't notice because I was so in the zone. The design fell into place. My brushstrokes felt bold and loose. I pushed the colors to places I hadn't intended, and I loved it. But best of all, I had fun. 1 year ago, I would have said, I don't know how to paint. I don't know what to do. Today, I can say, look what I can do. Just watch me. Thank you, Jed. Thank you, Dianna. Thank you, Acrylic University. So what does that mean? We have 3 options for you: monthly, annual, lifetime memberships, right? You can go, hey, risk-free on all of it. Like, there's a money back guarantee. If you say, I'll dip my toes in it, I'll do a month. If you're like, hey, I'm ready for a year, you can do that. If you say, I want to jump in lifetime on all of them, if you say you're month in, you're 29 days in, and you go, I don't want this anymore, you can reach out to us and we will give you your money back. No questions asked. There's no risk on your part. But what I found is that this is actually really interesting because it's happening to me right now. And there are lifetime payment plans. But one thing I realized is that the commitment to something matters. It actually matters, because I joined something recently, and it's a year commitment. And this is what happens. I was talking to a friend who has worked with people for a long, long time. And he says, this is the pattern. A lot of times people start with something and they're really excited about it, but then they might have something come up in their life and it distracts them and they miss a little bit of time. And if they're just like kind of committed to something on a month-to-month basis, what can happen is they're like, oh, I didn't use it for the last month. I didn't use it. I'm going to be done. What happens for the person who's like committed for a year, they'll have that same thing happen, but they'll go like, oh, I'm committed to this thing and I'm going to jump back into it. And it's a really, it just happened to me where I might have stopped, but then because I'm already committed to this, it got me back in, and I'm more committed than I was before, which is super cool. So I encourage you, if you're on the fence, just do it for a month, because in that month, you'll be able to test it out and you can upgrade to a bigger membership if you want after that. But if you're at a place where you're like, you know what, I need this commitment. I know myself, jump in with both feet, because it's not going to be something that disappoints you. You're going to jump in and you're going to find that to be a place that you can come back to time and time again. And this is where people were asking, this is all on the same page. If you go to the membership, sign up, there are scholarships. There's a scholarship button underneath all that stuff. So you're going to get so much, guys. I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to keep going, but I just want to say you're going to flourish. You're going to love it. You're going to have fun. And it is now time for the giveaway. So I'm going to just real quickly change up my screen and go to that, because I've got to show you this fun thing. And we're hoping for a two first and last name today. But who wants to win a $100 gift card to Blick? I loved what one thing that Doug said earlier that I haven't ever even thought of, but look at that. Dianna, listen. I start with monthly, change to yearly, and then to lifetime. I love it. I love it too. So here, Robert Brewer, congratulations, Robert. You have won a $100 gift card to Blick Art Materials. And guys, this is just the start of the giveaways. These three were kind of like, hey, we're getting rolling with the giveaways, but we're going to continue giving things away. Now, these first sessions really have been based on showing up and being here. The next giveaways are going to be for you submitting your homework. So like I said, if you go to the landscapeworkshop.com, that's where you can find the form to submit your paintings, because we really, the goal of art is to do it. That's our goal for you, is to do it. And so we want to encourage that. So if you go to that submission page and you put in your paintings, you'll have a chance to win and to show up on Monday. We will have a couple door prizes just for people who show up on Monday anyways. So you don't even have to submit a painting to win some of those different things. But the next set of prizes, that'll be like the bigger prizes, they will be for people who have submitted paintings. So anyways, I just wanted to say that. And let's see if I have any more slides. I'm going to look at that real quick, because I think I might be pretty much done here with the slides, except for just a small reminder here that just make sure you set your timer for Monday, because that's going to be awesome. And go to the landscape workshop. So we're going to come back. Dianna and I are going to be here for another minute or a few minutes, and we're going to answer any questions that didn't get answered in the chat during the stream. So shout it out, and Peter's here to help us, but I'll keep my eye on okay, when is the homework due? Quick, easy question. That is going to be due on Monday morning. So you have all weekend long. You just need to turn it in by 8 a.m. Monday morning. 8 a.m. Monday morning, that's Pacific time. So if you're on the East Coast, get a couple extra hours. Okay, Matt asks, why did you choose Naphthol Red instead of Cadmium Yellow Deep for the underpainting? That's a great question. There's no reason at all. For me, I choose completely random colors, and people are always asking me, why do you choose that color for the undertone? I like to experiment, and there might be a thought behind it. There might be just more like, oh, I wonder what this will do. On this painting, I could have used yellow, orange, red. I could have used anything. My main thought was to do something that was kind of bright and colorful, because the scene itself was it was kind of a muted white and black and gray scene. There wasn't a lot of color in that reference photo. So I just thought it would be kind of fun to have something colorful showing through. And I just chose Naphthol red because it was on my palette, and it seemed like a good mix. But if you watch carefully, I did mix in a little bit of the orange mix into it. So it wasn't a pure Naphthol red. It did have a little bit more orange in it. Okay, Leslie asks, are there charges for both membership and the courses? I guess I'm asking if the courses are free as part of the membership. When you're a member, you have access to all that stuff that I showed you. Yeah, the journey and the library. Yeah. How can I see other people's work? Oh, shoot. Yeah. I could show you that too. Dan, I want to get your input on some of that, because you have, let me just show this real quick, and then we'll go to, so if you go here, this is the landscapeworkshop.com, and you can go here to atmosphere. That's what we're talking about today. But if you go to submit paintings and you click on this go to submission form, it will take you to this page right here. And this is where you can fill out this form and submit any image that you have. And then you can also look at other people's work. So isn't this cool? You can see all this work that's from the last lesson. Most of it's from the last lesson. And but that is straight on the landscapeworkshop.com. You go to that form and you'll see it. Yes, there is going to be a live session on Monday. It is going to be me and Dianna painting side by side, same reference photo. Now, we're not going to be teaching straight up like we have these last three, because it's more of a celebration. There's more like fun. But Dianna, it's a good time, isn't it?
We always have fun. There's a lot of back and forth. And Jed and I really paint quite differently. You know, our processes and the way our brains work is very different, but we paint the same thing. And it's really fun for people to watch two different artists paint the same thing and come up with a result that's Jed's are very Jed's and mine are very Dianna. So that'll be really fun to see. And
It's
encouraging
so
for
fun.
you, because your paintings will come out different too. And that's okay.
And that's one of the big points, right? Is like you could line 10 artists up and paint the same thing and they'd all be different, because we all have a different perspective and a different voice. And that's what this is about, you discovering who you are, and seeing us approach the same thing and coming up with totally different things will help you go, oh, wow, you could be totally different. And they're both really wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. White zinc and acrylic medium, is it the same thing?
Nope.
So zinc white is different than acrylic medium. Acrylic medium, generally, just straight acrylic medium is clear, completely clear. So this is zinc white. This is a fluid zinc white. Now you can get it heavy bodied in a tube. This is the kind that Golden makes. It's fluid acrylics, and this has more medium in it. So it's like the fluid part of it means like I don't even know if I should say it has more medium, but the medium that is in here is a high viscous kind of medium, like it's thin. So that means it's easier to just do what I did during the demonstration. I can just pour it out and I can just use it straight up. I don't have to mix anything in with it. So that's kind of why I used it. But zinc white is different than acrylic medium. Is the atmosphere painting finished, or will you post the finished picture? You know, there's a little bit more that I would do on it. I haven't done it yet because I wanted to, I will take a picture of it as it is, but there was a little bit, maybe just like fine details that I would do in the trees. There was a couple parts of it after I finished. I looked at it and I thought it's a little bit of a blobby area. I'll like refine that a little bit. Elizabeth says, would the membership be beneficial to an oil painter that doesn't want to switch to acrylic? And do you discuss selling your artwork? I have such a sarcastic, like there's a part of me that just wants to joke around with you and say like, well, why wouldn't you want to switch to acrylic? But we have had people who are oil painters and stay with oil. I would say this. I would just encourage you to try it and to see if it's beneficial to you. I can't say that it would be beneficial to every person who is like, I'm an oil painter and I don't want to do anything, but this is the truth. 85 to 90% of what is taught is very easy to transfer to oils. It's the process, it's the way of thinking, it's design, it's color and values and stuff that's across the board. There are going to be some things that when you see us paint really quick layers on top of other layers where you have to go, okay, I need to do a thin layer, let it dry, do another layer. So I guess that's a little bit up to you, but I would give it a try, come to a few sessions, see if it's helpful, and then you can make your decision, but you can get your refund as well.
Oh, for the next question, I actually do know this. Acrylic paints don't yellow because they're made with modern materials. Oil paints are made with old, resins and all kinds of things that do yellow. And acrylic paints really hold their color. You buy professional grade paints, they're not going to yellow. Nothing will.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Diana, what about this question?
Oh, the YouTube classes are nothing like what we've got in the library for you. And the monthly workshops, I do a live monthly workshop, but then it goes into the library. And so if you've missed it on that first Friday of the month, you can go back and get it. And I teach 12 workshops a year, and you have access to all of them. And those are not on YouTube. You can't find them anywhere. And then Jed has all these fabulous modules, not on YouTube. So
and all the courses, all the courses that are there, they're not on YouTube. Like you can get cool stuff. We try to provide a lot of good value on YouTube, but the difference is that inside of the membership, it's much more easy for us to lay things out in the proper order. We can create a whole course that you can work through in order, so when you're learning, you are building upon what you have learned before. And we've set it up in a way that makes sense. If you have a question on something that a beginner would have a question on, we'll have, here's where you start with the foundation courses. Here's where you would go for this. And really, when you're working with something like YouTube, for one, it's very difficult to like create something that's comprehensive and really easy to go through like that. And two, it's the community that we can build inside of Acrylic University is it's easier to have a tight-knit, wonderful experience inside of Acrylic University.
Yeah.
So now that doesn't mean that we don't use YouTube. We actually do our live events on YouTube, but they're private. So you will never see them on YouTube because they're hidden from the public. But we actually use it because it's a good platform for chat and for different things. But inside of Acrylic University is much different. Oh, good. Diana, in the water painting, the background was much darker than the foreground. Was this an exception?
Well, yes, because the foreground was in sunlight and the background was in shadow, and the background wasn't very far away. I could have waded up that river, in 30 seconds, could have been there. So it's not necessarily an exception. It's just that there wasn't so much air in the way between me and the background. So when it's a really short space, you're not going to see that. And there are exceptions all over the place. I think I said in my lesson that nature gives you millions of exceptions. All the things we talk about are what's 90% of the time, this is what happens. But when you go outside, anything's possible. But that
Oh,
was
yeah.
that was a deep shadow in the background and bright sunlight in the foreground. So, we were looking at two different things.
There's
Thanks
always
for the question.
exceptions.
Always.
Even in this atmosphere, when you think about atmospheric perspective, if you know what alpenglow is, right? It's like one of those places where there's often an exception because the sunlight will be hitting a hill, a mountain in the background, and that snow is receiving this really gorgeous, colorful sunlight, and it's glowing orange, and it's not really muted and diffused in like blue like you would think because it's still pretty far away. So there are always going to be exceptions to the rules, but the rules are just there for like, hey, in a general normal circumstance, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Why do you not have a warm yellow in your palette? CAD yellow light is so cool, and I wanted a warm yellow in my foreground. How do you get that with your palette? So I've limited my palette for teaching purposes. It's so much better for like having people follow what you're doing. But I switch out my yellow sometimes. Sometimes I'll use a yellow medium. Sometimes I'll have a yellow dark deep in there. It depends on what I'm painting. See, if I'm painting a sunset and I'll add an extra yellow in because there's more variety in the yellows in the sky of a sunset than there are in other things. So, but if I'm looking to get more warmth into my cadmium yellow light, I just mix a tiny little bit of naphthol red or something like that into it, and it will move it towards orange, essentially. For the homework, do we need to paint the demo you painted, or could we paint similar concept in another painting? Yes. You can provide your own reference photo. You can paint your own thing. Great question. Great question. Okay, I'm going to I'll read it, but you answer it. My paint seems thin. How much paint are you using? Are you getting on your brush to apply to the surface?
Okay, so here's the thing. I use the tip of my brush and I pick up a glob of paint. When I put the paint down, unless I'm going to be, blending or scumbling or, doing something really thin, I want to feel it. I want to feel it buttery on the canvas. If it feels scratchy or dry, there's probably not enough paint to move around on your painting. So a nice little ball of paint right on the end of your brush, that's going to be a good amount of paint to use. Too much, and it's just going to squish up into the ferrule of your brush and make a mess. So, but you've got to have more than a dip, more than a touch. Get a good scoop.
Yeah. I've read a lot of people saying things like, where do you, or how much paint do you actually, put on your little blobs? How much paint was on your palette? And I think generally, if you're starting out or you're, a lot of times people use not enough paint. That's like kind of a general, it might not be you, but if you're listening to this and you're wondering how much paint, you're probably not using enough paint to achieve some of the effects that you want. Yeah. And it's very easy to be, kind of frugal with the amount of paint. And I totally understand, get it. But paint, like we generally use more paint probably than you are, I would say in general.
Right. And people are asking, yes, I use heavy body paint and I use it unthinned. I don't thin it with water. I use it straight out of the tube thick. When you thin it with water, it flattens out, just like you poked a pin in a balloon. It'll just flatten right down. If you're seeing the texture of your canvas underneath and you don't want to, you're not using enough paint. So put more paint on your brush.
And Teresa, you asked, do you need a YouTube subscription to access? There are two things happening here, right? We have a YouTube channel, which you're on. And if you subscribe to that, that's wonderful. You'll be notified and you'll be able to see like when we put new videos out on the public YouTube page. But what we're talking about with our membership is something totally different. It's inside of a private site where we have courses and all this other stuff. And no, you actually don't need a YouTube subscription for that. You need a membership with Acrylic University for that. So it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can we access these 3 lessons in AU when I join? Yes, actually, that is one of the cool things is that, yeah, we kind of take this off of the public sphere eventually, and we put it into Acrylic University. We move it over there. And the reason we do that is so that we can concentrate our effort on the Acrylic University members who have said, yeah, we want to do this. We want to grow. We want to be here. And then we can go, okay, awesome. We're here with you. Let's do this together. So, but yeah, they'll be there for you to watch later. Well, the Monday program will be recorded. And actually that is one of the programs that will stay on YouTube because it's not, it's the celebration and it's a fun event. And yeah, that'll be recorded here on YouTube and it will actually be there available afterwards. Do you get a certificate for completing AU or is it just a membership? Good question. So it's not an accredited school, if that's what you're really wondering. There's not, we do have certificates if you finish certain courses, but it's not the same thing as an accredited art school. Although, Dianna, have you ever heard somebody say that they learn more from your teaching or what is inside of Acrylic University than art school?
Yes, all the time. Every single time I teach, people say, I learned more from you in an hour than I did in years at art school. And I don't know why that is, but the reality is I work all month to create that 2-hour workshop so that it is completely, all the information is lined up in a row to make it so that you can really understand it. For me, getting that information to be understandable and accessible, and I put it in slides so it's visual, so you really, really know the concept, and that's what I'm after. And all the time, I get that statement.
It's so amazing, guys. You guys, if you saw all the responses we get from people, I mean, it's crazy. If I had $1 for every time somebody said, I've learned more from you than from a 4-year university I mean, it's crazy. Like,
I know. Hey, why don't you send $1?
Well, the thing is that the kind of sad part about that is like, Dianna is an incredible teacher. And there really aren't that many people that I'm even aware of. I don't actually know of anybody who's as good as explaining things and like has the knowledge that Dianna has. Like I'm being completely sincere.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you so much.
Totally amazing. But to say that in 1 hour somebody learned more than 4 hours of art school or 4 years of art school or something like that, like that also is saying that choose your instructors carefully. Like if you just went to art school, you just get thrown in front of like people and they're not necessarily good painters at all. Like I've heard that about so many things. Like if somebody was a successful business person, they wouldn't be teaching at your dang like community college business courses. They'd be running a successful business. And that's what you have with Dianna and me is you have people who've been professional artists for years and are now going like, and we can help you learn. So
Yeah, I went through a lot of years of having. You should see my art book collection. It's a huge library because I didn't have people who could do this, who could teach me. So I had to teach myself. And over 40 years of time, I mean, I did have teachers, but there were big gaps of what they told. So over 40 years of time, I've assembled this stuff and I'm so happy to share it with people. So
yeah. Adina, you ask, are the miniature challenges included with the membership? And they are not included with the membership. One of the things that we do is we've worked with different artists over the years, and we keep including different people. So this next year, I'm really excited. I'm not going to tell you today who it's going to be, but really fun artist that's going to be working with us. But we want to be able to pay the artists for, like how it goes. So we don't include those. Those are an extra charge. But if you are a member, you get a really better deal on anything like that. So that's the thing. Vicky, I would say if you're a member right now and you don't know when your membership ends, email us at support@acrylicuniversity.com and we can look that up for you.
The support is really great. There's a team of people who answer questions. So definitely, if you've got questions like that, support, email that. What is it exactly again, Jed?
Support@acrylicuniversity.com.
Okay.
And I can throw that up there real quick. Maybe.
Because if any of those technical questions, those people
you can see that
wonderful.
Right there, support@acrylicuniversity.com. But I want to, Peter, can you throw up that last, I'm sorry, I was worried that was going to happen. Somebody had a question that I covered up and then it went away.
I don't know where it was. I'm way past that now. So
oh no, shoot. Sorry.
Did not start, unfortunately.
Do you remember what it was?
It was something about,
I remember what it was. It was, can you do 6 months? Can you spread a payment plan over 6 months? Mm-hmm. And I would say email support@acrylicuniversity.com. We'll see what we can do. I'm not sure. I don't always make all the decisions on that. So
cool.
Well, we like to work with you though.
There you go. Here's another question.
How do I know if Winsor & Newton acrylic paints are open or a closed paint? They're closed.
They're a fast drying paint.
Yeah.
I think, isn't Golden the only one that has an open?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Golden makes a paint that specifically has slow drying medium in it, and so it's an open paint. There's another brand that makes something that is, it's even different. I don't remember the brand, and I've never used it, but they have a special thinner that you can mix back in, and you can re-wet it. So those are the only two that I'm aware of that do anything other than the normal.
Right. They're from Australia, and I think they're called Atelier or something like that. But you have to put the thinner onto it to make it slow dry. Golden Opens are great when it's dry and hot outside. I use them when it's hot and dry and I'm outdoors. So, they're great.
Yeah. Leslie asks, if I start out monthly, can I get credit if I switch to annual or lifetime? And yes. So here's the situation. If you upgrade within the first month, first 30 days, you will get 100% of that. And if you upgrade after that, we are actually going to give you a percentage of that, but it's not 100%. Now, if you're somebody who's like, well, I upgraded before and you didn't let me get, credit for anything in the past, just email us, right? There's lots of stuff that can happen if you email us. So, anyways, but yeah, you'll get 100% credit for 30 days. And after that, it'll be a percentage.
All right. I think, okay, we'll answer like one or two more if they come through. Here's a question here.
What does it mean, the end of a membership? If you do monthly, doesn't it keep going as long as you're paying? Yeah, I'm assuming she was meaning her annual membership. That's what I think she probably meant, was she signed up for a year, and I think she's wondering when is that year over? Now, it will automatically renew unless you have canceled it on your end, you can do that, but it will, you don't actually have to worry. Like a monthly membership will renew every month for you, so you don't have to like wonder. But
Aomi
good
has asked
question.
us a couple times, where's Diana's finished painting from Wednesday's class posted? It's on our Facebook and our Instagram page. So you should be able to find it there. Oh, here's a question.
Is this size of your paintbrush typically proportional to the canvas you're using? That's a really good question. For me, often if I'm painting on a bigger canvas, yeah, I use more and more of my bigger brushes to cover the larger canvas. I don't know. Do you do the same thing, Diana?
Oh yeah, when I'm doing big canvases, I have big brushes.
Yeah.
Like and so I used to paint really huge when I had a big studio, like 6 feet, and I would have a giant house painting brush to get over it. So
That's awesome. Kathy says, I've learned more techniques from AU than I ever learned in art school in the 70s. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that honestly we hear that so frequently, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Here's something. Oh, wait. Oh, it moved on me. I'm sorry. Here's the one I was actually trying to click on. Diana is a classic, so academic, knowledgeable, experienced, but bold and creative. Just a master. That's so true.
I agree. I totally agree.
Sharon, no, the same thing applies for you. Just email us at support@acrylic.university. We will connect you and hook you up. So, guys, it's time for us to go. Whoopsie. We gotta let you guys go. We gotta go, but
yeah,
make sure you mark your calendars for Monday. We're gonna be back. It's gonna be so fun. 2 paintings side by side. Me and Diana having a great time. Just
we haven't decided on the reference photo yet, so we better decide that and post it so you guys
it's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Just don't surprise me at the last minute. Ta-da!
By the end of in the next couple hours, we will get the reference photo picked out for you, so that if you do want to paint along with us, it'll be there for you on the landscapeworkshop.com. That is where you can find that. I'm gonna just throw that banner up here. Oh,
yeah.
At 4 o'clock, right? 4 o'clock Pacific time on Monday, right?
That is, okay. Yeah. And if you go to the landscapeworkshop.com, you'll see all the information there, time, everything like that, resources, the resource photo will be there. But guys, we love you. We believe in you. We are so thankful for you. Thanks for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday, and turn in your paintings by Monday morning and you'll be entered to win a prize. We're going to have a great time.
Yes,
thanks, Diana and Peter.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys. Love you all.
Love you guys.